Hey guys, hope everybody's doing well today. Today I want to talk about long-term care insurance. It's kind of an ugly topic. There's no good, solid solution out there. So I'm just going to talk about what I know and what I see and what I hear, and hopefully that benefits you. So long-term care insurance was first introduced years ago, and it was a very wonderful product. A lot of people took advantage of it, and then medical costs just skyrocketed. And insurance companies that provided long-term care insurance really took a hard hit. And so people that got in early, it probably was a great deal. But for us today, or people who continue to have long-term care insurance, have found out and experienced premium increases where increasingly they get priced out and end up dropping the coverage, or they end up having to reduce their benefits in order to keep the premiums reasonable, or some combination of both if they don't just drop it altogether. So there's no just super great options out there. I will say, if you don't have any assets or none, not a lot to speak of, then there's nothing for you to do, because you have no assets. And if you have an issue, and keep in mind, this long-term care coverage, I guess I should say, it's to help offset the costs associated with the type of conditions and care that you might experience towards the end of your life. And that could come in the form of needing in-home care and assistance. It could be a nursing home, it could be a skilled care facility, it could be a memory care unit if you have, one of those type of diseases that's impactful to your memory. And it could be very expensive. Of course, it's going to be highly dependent upon your state and the costs in your area. But it could be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars per month. So if you don't have many assets to speak of, then there's nothing for you to do, because there's nothing that can be done. If you find yourself in that type of situations, then more than likely Medicaid, some form of care will be paid for by the government, but it won't be great, and you get what you get. If you have millions of dollars, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have millions of dollars, then you can either afford the fairly high premiums that you have to pay to have long-term care coverage, in order to make sure that you don't lose millions and millions of dollars in your assets if and when you or your spouse does experience one of those type of conditions towards the end of life that require a lot of care. It's very expensive. It's really the messy middle. You have enough assets where you would hate to lose all those assets to your care in the final years, but maybe you don't have enough where you can absorb the impact of needing to have that type of care later in life for you or your spouse, or both of you. And so a couple of options are just self-funding and saying that I'm going to designate a portion of my retirement savings just for that type of care if it comes up, knowing that maybe you need it, maybe you don't. That's one way to handle it. Another way of potentially handling it is, there are some forms of permanent life insurance, such as whole life, where you can purchase insurance and include a rider that would include some long-term care coverage that would at least help offset in part, some of those costs if and when you need it. So I would say those are some of the best options available for people who don't have millions and millions of dollars of assets, but have, some amount of assets to live off of, and how to protect yourself and plan for the need for long-term care. Oh, and I guess the third option that I should mention briefly is your kids. But, you have to be in a situation where you have kids, in a situation where you live near kids, and in a situation where you've had a conversation with your kids about, hey, if something happens to me and, I need help or my spouse needs help, are you guys going to be able to help? And, they might be glad to do it and available and have time and resources to do that. They might not. Your kids might be, in a busy family with lots of kids and, busy with work and life. And you'd be a big burden to them if all of a sudden you needed round the clock care or, that type of care. But that is an option. So those are the options that I see from my perspective is, family taking care of you, some, a whole life insurance with some sort of rider on it for long-term care, or self-funding or designating some of your funds and say, we're going to set this aside and only use it for long-term care needs if and when it comes up. I will say I kind of fall into that category of I have a healthcare savings account that I've just designated as, hey, I'm just going to keep this off to the side and let it grow. And if we have some sort of significant healthcare event come up, then those are the funds. Those are our go-to funds to use. So the HSA will probably be our first line of defense, although that's not a great type of account to inherit from your kid's perspective. And maybe we would just pull money out of there and just set it aside, but say that it will be for long-term care needs that might come up. So I'm curious though, what are your thoughts about that? Obviously, it's great to talk to a financial planner who understands your needs and your specific situation, and or a licensed insurance agent that again can get familiar with your situation and make solid recommendations. Someone that you trust. So, but yeah, I'd be curious what your thoughts are. Please leave a comment below if you have a take or opinion on the topic of long-term care coverage. And I appreciate it. I hope everybody takes care. Bye now.